In this video, I'll be looking at the 6 A's of a grade A presentation. This is another way of thinking about how to prepare. And it's similar to what we talked about with writing. For a grade A presentation, you need to think about 6 A's. Before you start, think about the audience. Think about your aim. Think about the assessment, how it's going to be assessed or graded. What are your audience looking for? What is your aim? And then while you're preparing, think about your abilities, the argument, and attention. How are you going to give the audience what they want and what you want to give them? So for the audience, who's going to be listening? We've talked about this already. You have a primary audience and a secondary audience. In the iGEM competition, the judges are your main audience, but you may have other teams, other people that are there as well. In a conference, the professors that are on the committee are your main audience, but there are also graduate students perhaps in the room, others your friends that are not as familiar with your work. In a thesis defense, the committee versus the graduate students. So you have to consider both your main audience that you're addressing that probably knows your work pretty well, but also a secondary audience that may not know it as well. So what do they know? You can assume, for instance, with iGEM, they know about synthetic biology. They know the basic principles. But you cannot assume that they know your topic. And so anything specific to your topic, you have to make sure that you list the words, that you show, so that describe, define, so that your audience knows. And simplify. Again, written and oral are very different. In writing, you can give all the details. In an oral presentation, you don't have time. So give the main ideas and then let the audience ask questions about the things that they're interested in and want more detail. So think what they want to hear, what you've done, and whether in the case of iGEM or in the case of your defense, have you met the criteria? Then again, what is your aim? What's the goal? Is your goal to inform or to persuade? Well, both. You have to inform them about what you've accomplished, but you also have to persuade them that you have met the criteria, whether for medals or for a degree. So be specific. Be specific about your methods, about your results, about how you met the criteria for those awards that you're trying to achieve. You have the same material but different goals, as we've said, for a conference presentation, a thesis defense, a job interview, because your aim is different. The aim in a conference presentation is to get feedback, to improve your research. In a defense, it's to prove that you have enough understanding of the subject that you are worthy of a degree. In a job interview, you're trying to prove your aim is to get that job. So you're trying to prove that you are the best person for that job. And therefore, the things that you emphasize are going to be different. That has to do with assessment. What are the standards by which your work is judged? You have to know those and plan around those as you're planning your presentation. Now, we'll have more on this specific criteria for a PowerPoint, for instance, in a later unit. But you have to make sure that each of those different criteria are specifically addressed. Then, as you're preparing your presentation, think about your ability. What are you good at? Highlight your strength, what you've done, what you can do well. Think about the importance of your work, the results, the collaboration, your presentation ability. What are you good at? Are you good at English? Are you good at graphic design? Are you good at animations? What is your team good at? Focus on that. Let the PowerPoint help to hide your weaknesses. For instance, again, for many people here, speaking, pronunciation is not standard. So make sure that those words, those important words, are put on the screen, the key words. Use pictures, use animation to help show rather than people speaking. And then your argument. Again, all academic writing and speaking is structured in some way as an argument, where you have a claim and support. What are your typical claims for iGEM? Well, number one is it's worth doing. You have to show the importance of your goal, either to the world or to Taiwan or to some specific group. Why do you want to do this? Who will benefit? How many will it affect? And then you have to show the deficiency of current solutions. What's the current best solution? Why is it not good enough? How else are other people addressing this? Why is your approach better? A second claim, it's likely to work. You have to look at other similar work, the theoretical basis, modeling. In some way, typically you have to show that there's some chance that you'll be able to succeed with the work. The third claim, you followed reliable methods carefully. So this involves giving the details of your method. Now again, if it's a very standard method, you don't need to give all the details in your presentation because you can assume that the judges know that. But intermediate results showing that you transferred the gene to the plasmid, that you expressed the gene product, those are things that you can show, but you don't need to focus on because that's not the final stage. And then claim 4, that you have achieved your goal, either partially, in many cases, or completely. So again, focus on what you have achieved, but also admit what you haven't. Now this is different from a journal article. A journal article, you focus only on what you have accomplished and maybe just one little paragraph saying what you still need to do. But for a conference or a competition, you often admit what you have not yet achieved in order to be more complete. And then specific to iGEM, it's important to make the claim that you have collaborated with others in a deep way. Again, remember that integrated human practice is very important. It's not just that you talked with other people, but you used that information to improve your project, that you had sustained cooperation with other groups, with industry. And so it's important to mention things like your education products, your meetings, but those are not sustained collaboration. It's more important to show the results of that one long sustained collaboration in order to make the point that your claim that you have integrated human practice. And then again, finally, attention. Make it interesting. Begin with a story, not with facts. But on the other hand, don't get carried away with material that's irrelevant to your work. Make it short, make it interesting, and then move on. Don't spend too much time on one slide. Use pictures, use graphics, use animations, as we talked about, in order to keep it moving. More details we'll talk about in later talks as we talk about PowerPoint presentations in particular and how they're different from posters and displays. But for both of them, you have to consider these 6 A's in order to have a good presentation.